So at this point, you have all the easy stuff done. You've got your storyline and your characters, and you've got some props made. And now you're going to do the actual bulk of the work, which is to make all these puzzles and to link them up with the props and to make an escape room. So this is really where the bulk of the work is going to happen. So before we get into that too much, let me give you some ideas for some types of puzzles you could create. You could do something in a sequence. It could be an invisible code that's hidden on a prop, a scrambled code, an encrypted code, a hidden code, a maze. They could have to translate it from a language or from symbols, decode it in some way. From hex and binary code, it could be a math problem. It could be coordinates like on a graph, or QR codes. So the goal is to link the puzzles with the clues with the props. So by combining these three things, you get a puzzle that reveals a code, and through all of this, it's all hidden within the props. The only way to really explain this to you is to actually just show you examples, because this is such a difficult thing to teach. It's really something you just need to see how it has been done in the past. So in this example, there are 3 steps to this puzzle. They've got to find the correct path from one side to the other. They've got to use a UV light to find the letters. So these letters here, I'm showing you the letters, but in the actual puzzle, these were not visible. So they not only had to find the path, but then they had to use a UV light that was hidden, somewhere else, to shine on it and reveal which letters they should use to unlock a word lock. On this one, this is a 2-step problem. So first they have to find the path, right? So they have to figure out, number 1. So this would be like a word lock, or I'm sorry, a number lock. So the first number is whatever, wherever this ends up going, which I don't know where. I'm not going to take the time to do that. But you'll notice there's also some distractors. Like the 4 is not going to be a number. No one can get to number 4. It's blocked in. But anyway, once they get to it, then they have a number code. This one here is a message decoder. So for example, here was the message D3. So they had to go D3 to get the letter. And so they had to figure out the message. That's 3 steps. On this one, they had to get keywords, and so they had to figure out what these mean, which you can see here, for example, apple pie, peace on earth. And then these then led to locations where they got other clues. So it's hard to see where this fits into the whole overall escape room. The important thing here is just to see how different puzzles work. This one here is, this note actually gives a sequence. It says, actually my eyes are so bad I can't read that. Let's see. Put on the star, then ornaments, then put the gifts under the tree. So that's giving them the sequence, and then they needed to count up how many. So that was a number code. This was a candy match. So they had to match up the candies into the crossword, and then they're only going to keep the letters that are outlined in red. And then they had to unscramble those, and that was a code. That unscrambled word was a code. This is a decoder where the alphabet is shifted. So a message would be written using this shifted alphabet that then has to be decoded into these letters. And this here actually was the message that had to be decoded. On here, this is in another language. This one is written backwards, so they'd have to use a mirror, or if they can read backwards, that would work too. This is using symbols as letters, and this one is as well. This one is an example of content that then has these hidden letters within it that they would then pull out. This right here is an example of a directional lock. I showed you this in an earlier video. So it's a message, but it really hides a directional lock because the words right and left and up and down are used throughout the message. This right here is the order that this process needs to occur. And so the code would be a color code. So once they have it in order, then they know the color code. This right here, these were actually put onto popsicle sticks. And so once they were put in order from 1 to 12, the outside of the popsicle sticks had a code. In that case, it was a number code, but it could also be a word code or a symbol code. But the point was it had to be in order. A telephone can be used to exchange letters into numbers. This is called the pig pin cipher. It can be used to write codes. Codes can be hidden on jigsaw puzzles. So you have the puzzle, you cut out the pieces, and then they have to put it together. Clocks can have hidden numbers. This is a boarding pass. It could have hidden numbers and information. You can use invitations, invoices, stories, driver's license. You can turn all of these things into clues that have hidden codes. You can also add games to add more action. So in the book, there is an example of a bunch of games that you can use. For example, they could build a paper airplane. They could build a Lego kit. They could, well, let's just go to the book and look, honestly, instead of me trying to remember all of this. Okay, here's the book. Because this is part of your assignment anyway. So we were going to go here no matter what. So might as well just jump you in here. Okay, so here's where they assemble something. They build some kind of Lego kit, the paper airplane, a maze that they've got to navigate through, a supply chain sprint, so some kind of sprint or relay race they have to participate in. They've got to crack a code. They've got to create patterns on the floor or follow patterns that are on the floor, or some kind of digital game like Kahoot or quizzes. And then, you know, the teams compete first, second, third, fourth place. And so the first place team gets their supplies first so that, you know, they get like a 20-second head start. That's a really fun way to start a game. It's also a great way to end a game, to actually assess or to have them practice what they were supposed to learn. So I think the games are good at the beginning and at the end. They can happen in the middle as long as you have people who can manage and supervise those, because typically games need a human to then intervene and do something, you know, after the game to move them along. And also games are generally like a whole group competition where the teams are competing. And that's why it's better when everyone is together at the same time. And so really, ideally at the beginning, I almost always use them at the beginning because everyone's together. Here is my plot progression for the McKinsey 7S. I'm going to have them land paper airplanes in a zone. So every team has to build a plane real fast and land it in a certain area before they get their supplies and can move on to the escape room. Then once they get their packet of things, the very first thing they're going to have is a QR code that's going to take them to a digital form. And the digital form will have all the codes. So I'm not actually using physical locks in this example. And that's how you're going to do a lot of these learning activities. They'll be online and they'll just be digital locks that they have to solve rather than actual physical locks. Actual physical locks are a lot of fun and very cool, but it takes a lot more time for you to set them up. Digital locks don't require any setup. You build it once and you just reuse it over and over. Then the middle of the game, they need to review the basic definitions in the process. I need examples of the 7 S's from different companies, and then they need to analyze the Stellar Enterprises S's and then create an action plan. Still not sure how this is going to work. All I know right now is that that's what needs to happen in the middle, and then in the end, they're going to solve some kind of final code that's going to be hidden in the action plan. So somehow they're going to have to like review the action plan and figure out a code. That's what I've got so far for that. So now you're going to go through pages 57 through 66, which is mostly going to cover the types of puzzles that you can do and the games that I've already shown you. And then in the next video, we're going to talk about props.